Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grilling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the Grilling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and I'd like to introduce Replenishing Care and Technolgies founder James Comerford to his different time slot from Tuesday mornings. I wanted James to follow our NFL shows, since what his company does to improve athletic performance and overall health using cellular health technologies has great application to football. My sons and I are living proof of that over the past few years since I've met James. So right now I want to welcome James Comerford.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's so great to be here. And, I know as we've gotten to know each other a little bit over the past couple of years, you've been great at sharing the successes that you and your son have seen. And, what my greatest joy in what I do is hearing those kind of stories or successes. And, I'm no longer surprised by them. I've seen things from major performance improvements with elite athletes to, weekend warriors like myself being able to improve and keep doing what they're doing, all the way over to folks who aren't doing so well, starting to see some improvement in what they're experiencing in their health and daily lives. So, it's always really gratifying to hear those kind of references. And, I've really enjoyed what you've shared with me about you and your son. So, great to be here, and look forward to talking a little bit about some other successes that we've seen probably over the course of what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes.
Yeah, and we connected about 3 years ago, and once I met James, everything about his company blew me away, especially after I saw how it worked. And the thing about this is it is really great for anybody, whether a regular athlete or if there's somebody that's just a weekend warrior. So it doesn't matter if you're elite or a weekend warrior, this helps. And basically, with Replenishing Care and Technologies, what James has created here is a one-stop cellular regeneration system that transforms any home gym, team training facility, or professional practice into an accelerated recovery center. So for any athlete looking to get more fit, perform better, and prevent injury, I hope you'll take a few minutes and listen to what James has to share with us today. And the website is www.rcandt.com. And on that note, James, would you begin with a little quick overview of what RCNT is?
Oh, of course, Mike. Replenishing Care and Technologies is a personal best performance and personal best fitness system. And we do that by stacking 11 plus cellular health technologies together. And each one of those technologies either gives cells back the resources to perform, heal, and repair, or helps restore the body to homeostasis and balance. So as a result of that, we help athletes perform at their best by restoring and amplifying their body's own ability to heal and keep them at their best. And for elite athletes, you've got really great DNA to begin with. So, you tend to see some really good results. But, as I said earlier, weekend warriors like myself do real well with it as well. And the reason for all of that is that when the body's own healing and repair system is fully engaged, that healing capacity raises athletic or life performance exponentially, and it also increases overall wellness. So the other great thing about it is that when our internal healing capacity is at its best, the more we're going to benefit from athletic training, good nutrition, and or exercise practices. So it's kind of a win-win-win type of thing. And in fact, our whole goal is to make reestablishing and maintaining cellular health the foundation of fitness training best practices, just like hydration, rest, stretching, and nutrition are. And we want that to apply in the healthcare system as well. But we're on the, we're talking about athletics here today, and that's really where we're focused in beginning our journey into putting this out there.
Yeah, and as I said in the introduction, my family and I have been using your technology separately for years. That's why the Replenishing Care and Technology one-stop cellular regeneration system makes so much sense to me. For those who may be curious, maybe you could quickly describe how it all came to be.
Well, just speaking about myself personally, I'm 63 years old. I work out every day. I'm pain-free and prescription drug-free. And that's probably not that big an accomplishment. Although if you compare to where most people are supposed to be at 63, I'm probably doing okay. But what probably makes that a little more interesting is that when I was 40, I was in a wheelchair with Guillain-Barré syndrome. That literally took me from running 50 miles a week to not being able to stand up for 50 seconds in about 10 days. And I'll not go further down that path, but it had an awful lot to do with the path I'm on. So about 15 years ago, I was part of a group who set out to create what we were calling the Clinic of the Future. And what really we learned from that is that if you improve cellular health, you tap into the body's own ability to heal and repair. Since cells are a whole lot smarter than we are and work a whole lot better than anything we'll ever create, when you focus on improving cellular health, this approach is way more effective, more efficient, and better for the person. And, an out-pocketing of that is that nothing we do in terms of helping improve or reestablish cellular health causes any collateral damage. And so this all came to be really as part of a very, extended law of attraction process. And each one of the technologies that we've put together makes its own unique contribution to improve cellular health, is more effective when they are used with the others, so they work synergistically. All of them reinforce, and in one case, one even amplifies the benefits of everything else you're doing, including the other technologies. And, they overlap in important things like pain or reducing pain and inflammation, giving you more energy, improving range of motion. And one of the things that's best of all that I kind of alluded to, they do no harm. And they also adapt to the individual. I know it's probably a little bit of a download, and I don't want it to be, but I'll just wrap up here quickly. By adapting to the individual, it helps elite athletes excel more. Recreational athletes or healthy people perform better. Usually what we see is a less active person will see systemic improvement overall, and a lot of them will actually start to increase fitness and wellness efforts and activities simply because they feel better. And for anybody ill, injured, or post-surgical, there's symptomatic relief and faster recovery, often with less, need for drugs. And in my case, at 60, 3 years ago, I returned to full workout 9 days after hernia surgery because of the technologies I have. And overall, the impact is that, you become more resistant to illness and injury, and as part of that, aging is slowed. So, it's a pretty powerful combination of things.
That does not sound like any clinic I've ever been in, James.
Interesting you say that. The actual clinic we wanted to create, Mike, was one that would target disease causes and risk factors. And interestingly, that's exactly what RC&T does. So we call it a personal best performance and personal best fitness system. And I don't want to go on a soapbox here, but sometimes it's really hard to get things across in our society that talk about true wellness, true fitness, and helping the body heal itself, because a lot of what we live with or work with in health systems tends to be symptomatic or even sickness-based. And so when you start saying you're going to proactively disrupt disease causes and risk factors before they sideline a person is not really how most of us are been conditioned to think. So we got rid of the term clinic and we call it a replenishing care center. And these things unleash the body's natural healing powers. And our plan is a global network of RC&T centers to enable everyone to have access to this so they have a better chance of staying well and performing at their best. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
That's a fairly large project in a fairly large nutshell, James.
Well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, it can't happen overnight, and that's why we started to, or chosen to start with athletes. And we created what you referred to, the Replenishing Care one-stop cellular regeneration system, and that's an on-your-site version of our replenishing care model that augments a home gym, a team training facility, a corporate wellness center, or professional practice. And when I say augments a home gym, it's not barbells and cardiovascular equipment. It's things that actually help reestablish cellular health, including the health of the cardiovascular system. So an athlete who's working out real hard and doing all the things properly is going to get a boost, a very healthy boost at the cellular level that's going to help them train and recover better so they can continue to train better and train harder, but do so very, what's the right word I'm looking for? Do it in a healthy way so you're not stressing anything or pushing yourself beyond the limits. In fact, this will kind of help you establish what your true limits are. And so, this system we've created will actually help an athlete or anyone recharge their cells, oxygenate their body, remove scar tissue, balance their musculoskeletal system, and positively upregulate neurology. And so, as you start to factor in what all of that means, is that anybody using this is going to see their efforts and results amplified exponentially as well as their overall health. And so I call it legal competitive advantage that promotes the lifelong health of an athlete and his or her family if they have it at home and the family uses it too. And basically, it's something that's very easy to learn. We do all the training around it, and you can have it at home or you can have it in a corporate wellness center. I'm reaching out to pro teams right now, trying to have a team do this on a team level. And it's perfect for a practice, but it'll turn a practice into a true wellness and fitness practice and away from, being a practitioner of chronic, as a good chiropractor, as a good friend of mine who's a chiropractor often says. So, that's what it's all about.
So you talked about the 5 technologies, and what do they do?
Well, I'll just run quickly down through what they are. PEMF, which is pulsed electromagnetic field, recharges cellular electric power. We have an enhanced exercise with oxygen therapy that basically repairs the body's own repair system. So you get the things working in your body that you need to repair and recover. We have a scar tissue device that's amazing, and it reduces and removes scar tissue and inflammation. Then we have pelvic correction, which is, chiropractic 101. It patterns the pelvis and spine to natural structural balance. And then we have the human performance technology that reestablishes optimal neurology within 7 seconds. And it gave me a gear back running at 62. So when you think about these 5 umbrella, technologies, as I call them, each one of those has its own unique contribution that we just ran down through. But what that translates into is an extensive list of corresponding subordinate benefits that are way, way, way too far to list here. But when you stack them together, you affect virtually every system, every organ, every function, and every cell of the body. And then, of course, as I said earlier, when you stack them together, you get some synergistic properties and almost like an entourage effect as these things start to help the other be more effective. And so key factors like better energy, more sleep, less pain, reduced inflammation, better range of motion, reduced stress, better mental clarity, those kinds of things, injury recovery, and even disease and injury prevention are all improved. And of course, when you stack them, we're all busy these days. So when you do them together, you also cut down on the time needed to put these things or make your body able to benefit from these things. So it kind of hits on both the therapeutic but also the practical side.
All right, for those who have heard some of our Tuesday shows, we did separate shows on at least 3 of the technologies in Replenishing Care and Technologies' one-stop cellular regeneration system. Since there are many listening today for the first time, did you want to spend a few minutes on each just so anyone listening for the first time gets a better appreciation of why combining these 5 technologies is so valuable? And why don't we just start off with my favorite? Let's start with PEMF. Yeah,
it's my favorite too. I remember the first time I used PEMF, and If you're not familiar with Guillain-Barré, it's an autoimmune disease in which the body's own antibodies cross over and start eating the sheath off nerves. So you basically start getting paralyzed, at least in the traditional form, which is the one I had, starting in the feet. And if you're interested in an image of it, medical historians now believe FDR had that. So if you want to picture FDR, it's pretty much the same type of thing I dealt with, except I was 40. In any case, PEMF, the first time I used it, put energy back into my body that had been affected most of all by the Guillain-Barré. And as the energy came in, it was like watching a fish on dry land as my cells rejoiced. And that kind of ties into the explanation of what PEMF is. It's a battery charger for cells. And so basically it puts an energy back into the body that's drawn to any cell that's undercharged electrically. Those cells naturally draw the energy to them. When they interact with the energy, they constrict, force toxins out, and draw the energy in. And any cell that's fully charged lets the energy go on by. Now, that may sound really simple, but what that translates to is an incredible number of biological processes in the body being affected all at the same time as PEMF starts to do its thing. And what people find, and my favorite thing about it, is that about 95% of people report less pain, increased range of motion, more energy, and a greater sense of well-being after using high-powered PEMF, and that's what we do. And as somebody in my position needs to do, you know, when the cell holds that improvement and you see that benefit in your body, you need to be aware of the fact that the cell is going to hold the improvement for 4 hours to 4 days. So, you know, it's likely that you see an immediate result. You're going to start to see a, you know, recurrence of maybe the problem that you had before. But the good news with PEMF is the more you use it, the longer the cell holds the charge, so the longer the improvement starts to be in place, and eventually the cumulative thing takes over and you can start to really reverse some things. And what I love about PEMF, and I can go on a long time about this, but I'll stop after about one more sentence here. PEMF is the foundation of replenishing care because the importance of cellular electric charge can hardly be overstated. And it, in fact, is the part of our system that amplifies the benefits of everything else. So we have built replenishing care and everything we do on the PEMF machine. And you and your sons know what it's done for you. And I mean, what I've seen it do for, you know, athletes who are scoring more goals or getting more touchdowns, all the way through to, you know, getting over injuries faster, and folks who are dealing with serious illnesses starting to recover. It literally is about the best thing you can do for yourself. And again, that's why we made it the foundation of our model.
Do you want me to go into a little bit for the listeners of my son's situation and how PEMF helped them?
Oh, please do.
All right, so this would have been 3 years ago. It was after we met. I don't even remember how we met, but I remember finding out about the PEMF, and a few months after we met, my son was a baseball pitcher, his football quarterback. He was 16 years old at that time, going into his junior year. And he threw a baseball high 80s, low 90s, and his wrist started hurting him. And we took him in June to Beacon Healthcare, orthopedic care up here, and they looked at him and said there was no way he was going to be able to play football because he was going to have surgery because 90% of the ligaments were detached. He only had 3% there. So I think it's around the time we talk because, you know, God works in mysterious ways. And I think I remember talking to you about that. And you're like, well, we got Dr. Fick, who was over in Springdale, Sharonville, I think it was, Ohio. And he was probably only about 10 minutes from our practice facility. Once again, God works in mysterious ways. And we start going over and seeing Dr. Fick, who was great. Didn't charge us anything. He let us use the machine. And the machine, we used it, I think, before our week 2 game against Middletown Christian. But he only got to use it once, and he had to come out of the game because he got hit on it and couldn't feel his hand. And he's like, oh, Dad, I told you that thing didn't work. I was like, son, it's going to take more than one time. So we started going before every practice. So we were going 4 days a week. Played the rest of the season without an issue. We went back to get an MRI at the end of the season, and now instead of being 3% attached, it was 65%, I think they said, attached. And we didn't use it in the off season, which we should have, but I felt bad about going for free to the doctor. But we used it all during his senior season, and by the time his senior season was over, it was attached at like 80%. And we made it through the entire year. We played in a national championship game down in Atlanta, Georgia. But more than just that, my younger son had issues too, where he broke his, just above his wrist, he broke the bone there. And they casted it and told him he would be out 4 to 6 weeks. And we went a week or two with the cast, and then finally he got tired of it. We cut it off. And I don't even know if you know this one, James, but Dr. Fick started putting that on there. And instead of the 4 to 6 weeks to heal, 2 weeks after he started using it, which would have put us at week 3, he was playing without a problem. And what we did was, after we'd taken the cast off, we had a cast specially made that could just be, it was kind of cut in half. You put around his wrist. It went over his hand up to just below the elbow. And he got to the point, but by week 3, when they were telling him it was probably going to be more like 5 or 6 weeks, he's taking the cast off and playing without a problem. And then the next year, he has a problem with a hernia. And I remember telling you about it, and you're like, well, that'll make it heal and recover quicker. And the thing is this, never had to have surgery, played the entire season. So everything about the PEMF machine, I'm completely sold on.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know the complete story, but I knew he had avoided a couple of situations or was able to continue playing. And I remember one of the situations where you went in to see Dr. Fick, and I think your son's wrist was acting up and your other son had an injury of some sort, and you're getting feedback from you the next day how, I don't know, I think your son at practice either, threw the ball harder than he had for a while.
That was the second week we'd went, probably the third time total, where up until then he was probably throwing the ball at 60%. And he came out, all of a sudden, he's throwing the ball, not 100%, but probably 85 or 90, which is where he stayed for the next 2 years. And he didn't miss any games for anything. And he was told the recovery from the wrist surgery would be anywhere from 5 to 6 months. And if 5 to 6 months, he plays 2 sports, he's going to miss at least 1 season. Instead, with the PEMF, he played the next 2 years, played successfully. He's going to college next year to play football on a scholarship. So I would say the PEMF was a great help.
Yeah. Well, it's, again, I mean, I love hearing the stories like this, and, I could run down through some, and I mean, for privacy reasons, I don't share the names of, some of the athletes we're working with, but, it's real fun to check line scores and, schedules kind of thing every day and see what scores were the night before the weekend, and just start to realize that, PEMF has made some contribution to that for sure. So yeah, it's real cool stuff. Yeah.
All right. How about this one? Because I don't know a whole lot about this one yet. How does the enhanced exercise with oxygen work?
Yeah, I mean, basically, oxygen helps rebuild the body's repair system. And so, exercise with oxygen, or the acronym EWOS, is basically a mechanism by which a person does activity while they breathe in concentrated oxygen to boost their heart rate. Standard oxygen or exercise with oxygen systems deliver the oxygen about 8 to 10 liters per minute, and you do it for about 15 minutes. And the benefits, the recognized benefits of that are anti-stress, anti-aging, anti-cancer, improves macular degeneration, reverses macular degeneration, weight loss, better sleep, increased resistance to cancer, and just a whole host of things. What we've actually created is a system that we call enhanced exercise with oxygen therapy, and that we use a reservoir system to capture the concentrated oxygen. And by virtue of having a big inventory, if you will, of concentrated oxygen, you can attach a much bigger breather hose to the extent that you will actually be able to take in 50 to 100 liters per minute instead of the standard 8 to 10. So, in that sense, you're getting more oxygen in the time frame. And of course, more is better in this situation. But what's really cool about the system we use is that in this reservoir, and I want you to imagine just a big bag, and in the corner of one of the corners of the bag, there's a seam that creates kind of a little triangular compartment. And in that, we capture a byproduct of the oxygen concentration process that's about 12% oxygen. And that's about the equivalent amount of oxygen you get if you're running in the mountains. So what we do over the course of our enhanced exercise with oxygen therapy, with altitude contrast feature, is we will take you from a place where you are breathing concentrated oxygen through a breather hose that allows you to take in 50 to 100 liters per minute. You feel like you can rip the phone book in half. Then, and it's all timed protocols, and we use pulse oximeters to measure rates of, oxygen saturation, heart rate, and everything is done obviously very safely. But what'll happen is, let's say you're just kind of breezing along, breathing in the concentrated oxygen. We flip a switch and basically take you to the 12% oxygen, which is about the equivalent to putting you out of a helicopter in the mountains and telling you to run along there. And so what'll happen is the moment that does happen is your brain realizes you've got less oxygen than normal. It starts to ration the oxygen you have, and the body becomes very efficient. And any athlete or any person doing this will start to notice their heart rate will go up. There's kind of a change even in the, in the way the body sweats and perspires. It certainly does more of it. You can even often get a kind of almost a scent of, lactic acid and other toxins being kind of, dumped out in the sweat. And just when an individual kind of gets used to doing that and they're trucking along with, reduced oxygen saturation and a high heart rate, we flip the switch and take you back to the side that has the big bag of concentrated oxygen at a time your brain knows it needs more oxygen and your heart rate is up. So you can imagine what happens in that moment is that your body gets a cascade of oxygen being pushed through the blood system into all the organs, into all the tissues, basically, throughout all the water and plasma in the body. And so what we see from that is a total reset of a lot of oxygen markers in the body. We've seen all kinds of cases of personal best performances by, mature athletes. And by that, I mean, high-level Olympians. I shouldn't say any Olympian is high level, but highly rewarded and decorated Olympians who are in their 40s getting personal bests using or after using this system, as well as marathoners. So, it's really exciting, and it's part of our model that we have for people to use at home or in a clinic or in a team facility, because it'll contribute to personal best performance, but it's also an amazing thing you do for your overall health because you're repairing the body's own repair system.
That's a really cool sounding technology, James. What's next?
Well, just to touch on that, the personal best side of this is really hard to understate. And I won't go on and on, but again, we've seen the examples of some really high level people doing things at stages in their life where you would have thought that would have happened 20 years before. And, in my own case, and, I'm a weekend warrior, but I used it a few years ago to take about 3 minutes off of 5K time, and it's not that I was training for the race and started doing this and then took the 3 minutes off, but I kind of, I was getting ready for this thing I decided to do late minute, and I kind of timed myself one morning, said, gee, I'm not really pleased with that. So instead of running for a week, I actually did the altitude contrast for a week, and at the end of that, took about 3 minutes off the 5K time. And when you're doing that at 60 years old and you're a weekend warrior, it makes you feel pretty good. And, you imagine what it'll do for somebody with the kind of DNA it takes to be an elite athlete. So it's a real cool technology and really fun to be part of it. And to answer your question, the next one is scar tissue therapy, which is another game changer, too, for lots of athletes. Scar tissue, I knew I'd heard scar tissue for a long time without ever really giving much thought to what it is. But basically, it gets caused by repetitive motion injury and surgery, and it's often the culprit in many cases of non-diagnosed pain. And, what happens is blood vessels that nourish the fibrotic tissue become restricted or blocked. The tissue dies and becomes rigid and inflexible, and then nerves get impinged and normal movement gets impinged. One of the great things about scar tissue therapy, it's pretty brittle. So we have a scar tissue therapy that's handheld that literally kind of targets this brittle matter and breaks it up, much like the feeling you get with a deep massage. And when the scar tissue is removed, you start to see things like reduced muscle spasms, improvement in TMJ and tendonitis and tennis elbow, and a whole host of other things that are associated with scar tissue. And often, again, as you said, a whole lot of cases of non-diagnosed pain. And so, I came across this. You talk about law of attraction or God. I came across this at a conference I was attending where I was demonstrating PEMF and had some issues in my legs at the time. And a fellow came over and said, "Hey, you got to come see this." And the moment he put it on my legs, I knew instantaneously, it was something I needed. And I instantly figured it was a great thing to include in Replenishing Care.
Yeah, and that's got to feel pretty good, because I can tell you this. I'm just one big mass of scar tissue from what my chiropractor told me. So, yeah. So next up, another
Come here,
one.
we'll take care of you, my friend.
I mean, I am, because Bill, and he's like, "Oh man," he said, "if you ever get a scar tissue machine, you could use that for days and finally be able to walk again and turn your head." And because I've got two shoulders that I'm to the point where I can barely turn my head just from lifting weights. And see, my problem, James, is this: I never used to stretch before I played any sport, and it never bothered me. But now I'm 50 years old, and not stretching seems to be an issue. But I still don't want to stretch, because it seems to me like if I'm going to work out for a half an hour, I don't want to add 5 or 10 minutes on top of that with stretching, James.
It's funny. The moment you said that, I picture myself maybe 20-something years ago running with a good friend of mine who was an MD, and we were talking about stretching. And I'm like you, I'm not a stretcher at all. And I try and do it a little more, but it's just something that it's sort of, like, why stretch when you could be working out, right? Anyway, I've been very fortunate to find, the things I found. And, the next time you're near PEMF, we'll do a rope wrap around your neck, because that'll help improve the range of motion in your neck, at least temporarily, unless we can get you using one regularly. But yeah, I mean, we all work out hard. We all have our things we like to do. And this is a real good way, what we're talking about here, these different technologies of kind of accentuating the positive things you're doing for yourself, and kind of at least mitigating some of the things you're either not doing, or some of the things that you are doing maybe that, could be changed or improved. So that's what I love about it. It meets you wherever you are and does what it can with what it has to work with.
Well, and I would think if you use the scar tissue before the PEMF session is going to be through the roof after that.
Yeah, well, that's what we do. I mean, our Replenishing Care protocol, and we have a whole best practice thing for the center model, literally begins with scar tissue therapy, and then it's PEMF, and then of course we put in pelvic correction, which is one of the things we're going to talk about here real soon, to balance the pelvis and reverse musculoskeletal imbalance, so that you get the best result from PEMF, because the energy will have an easier pathway up and down the nerves, the nerves of the body, or up and down the spine, etc.
Yeah, and by real soon, James meant next. But first, we did a show on pelvic correction, and if you want to find all these shows, you can go into grillingtruth.com. You can go in a search bar and just probably put in Replenishing Care or pelvic correction. You can find all of them on the grillingtruth.com. And next up, as we said, pelvic correction, which we did a show on. You want to tell everybody a little bit about the pelvic correction technique, James?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things, because it was the first thing I came across, and I'd go so far as to say it probably changed my life 20 years ago in ways that I probably can't even measure. I've been running literally daily for decades, and how I've managed not to have a lot of the problems that other folks end up with, I think, is a testament to learning how to do pelvic correction in about 2001. And it basically, you know, if you think about analogies, if you like those things, pelvic correction is to your body what balancing the front end of your vehicle is to tire wear and tire performance. So basically what pelvic correction technique is, it's a repatterning of the pelvis and spine to their natural structural balance. And it reverses a vicious cycle that affects all of us, in which loss of symmetry in the upper body starts a domino effect down through the torso and then ultimately into the hips. And what'll happen, and if you think of the hips as on a really simple one-dimensional level, the hip on each side is like a wheel. And what happens in when we lose the symmetry or pelvic imbalance is that the wheel on one side will rotate too far backward and it pulls that leg upward or short. And the one on the opposite side compensates by going too far forward and pushes that one down or long. So we end up with what is called a functional short leg. And if you think about the way the body is built, if you think of the pelvis as supporting the torso and the pelvis also being supported by your legs, if one leg is functionally shorter than the other, then it's going to drop to the short leg side, and then you start getting compensation at the pelvis all the way up to and into the neck as a result of the imbalance that's originally, that's why I say it's a vicious cycle. It starts in the upper body, throws off the pelvis, and then by throwing off the pelvis, it in turn throws the upper body off even more. So what the pelvic correction technique is a really simple assessment, 4 simple assessments that we teach people how to do. And it was really well crafted by a chiropractor who developed this. So it's pretty well foolproof. And in any case, we use these 4 assessments. I won't run into them now, but they're easy to learn. And what we basically discover is which side you were functionally short on, and then which side of the neck actually develops what is called a posterior reactive balance point, or a reflex in the neck that's part of an effort by the head to hold the head up straight, or the brain to hold the head up straight. It'll actually force a correction into the neck. So what we do with pelvic correction is, if you imagine you're lying on your stomach, and let's say it's the left hip or the left wheel that's gone too far backward, we place a wedge at the top of the femur head, right about at your pants pocket on that side. And then on the opposite side, we put a wedge right in at your hip bone. And if you can imagine that in your brain, the simple weight of your body with those wedges placed like that causes the imbalance in the hips to start to correct, and instantaneously for most people to start to see the imbalance pattern up the spine start to correct. And then we also have a neck roll that is designed to do 2 things. It actually helps maintain the contour of the cervical spine or the neck, and loss of that could be contributing to the neck issues that you're talking about just a few minutes ago. But we also have a traction device built into that when the person lies on their back, they're not only helping maintain the contour of the cervical spine by having the neck roll under their neck, there's a traction piece that pushes on that little reflex that gets created on either the left or right side of the neck. And we show people how to figure out where that is. And then you get the simple traction of lying with that point in your neck that when we push on in the assessment, literally causes the legs to go even. So they're very complementary. And I should point out, this is all explained on our website. There's, explanations and diagrams and all kinds of neat things there that kind of, do step by step what we're talking about here. But the pelvic correction technique is just, it's fabulous. And I mean, I've had NFL players show other NFL players how to do it in training camp because they found it so beneficial. So when you get that kind of, testimonial, it kind of speaks to the value of it.
All right. That brings us to something else that I've used before, which is the Vox Life Human Performance Technology. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, basically, this is the one I said that I gave me a gear back running at 62. VoxLife is a human performance technology that up-regulates neurology within about 7 seconds to its optimal level. And basically what happens in that is an athlete or any individual, and it's not just for athletes because it's great for somebody who has another reason to want better balance and stability, but using VoxLife will actually improve lateral and dynamic stability and balance by about 31% in 7 seconds. And then there's a whole host of other neurological benefits that come with it as well. And it's one of the most ingenious things I've ever seen, and I think you would attest to that. It basically is a set of insoles or socks that have a special algorithm or neurological algorithm in it, and that's my simplest way of explaining it. And it's set at about the position of the dermatome receptors of the feet. And what happens is when the dermatome receptors on the balls of the feet connect with this neuropathic algorithm, it basically sends a message, through the peripheral nervous system to the central nervous system and the brain stem, which in turn signal the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, all to basically get in gear, so to speak, or to start doing what they're meant to do. And so instantaneously, or at least in 7 seconds, you start to see dramatic improvements in athletic performance, but also, anywhere that stability and balance applies. So it could be a senior wanting to be more secure on his or her feet, or somebody, in the workplace who's on their feet all day, just wanting to either feel stronger on their feet or, reduce fatigue and those kind of things. So it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and it's real simple to use. I've had NHL players see it in the afternoon and wear it that night and report even better stick handling. And another NHL player, I spent some time with last summer, was actually putting the socks on before he went golfing, figuring it hit the ball harder and farther. So it's very cool.
How about this? I've got a question for you from me. I've got a kid on my football team who's a field goal kicker. Would this help him? Because it seems like it would if it helps your balance.
It would absolutely. Every indication would be. I'll give you one of the stories that I heard through VoxLife. There's maybe going back 20 years ago. I mean, the dates kind of escape me, but there's a figure skating champion named Elvis Styko who hails out of, I think, Alberta, Canada. Anyway, he did the test for VoxLife. And actually, in that, literally, people feel that kind of increase in power, feel that increase in stability. And he actually went out and skated. And when he did, he had so much extra force and power that he over-rotated and fell down and actually got up and laughed. Because the reason he fell down was he had so much more power when he took off using these things than before. So if you equate that to a field goal kicker or anybody who's looking for strength and power and precision, you can only imagine that it's going to augment their performance. I mean, I wouldn't want to be quoted and guarantee or promise that, but every indication would be that it was going to make them stronger and more precise in those kind of things. So he may just have to watch he doesn't kick it out of the park the first time.
So who should consider this? I mean, it's quite a package. I mean, you mentioned elite athletes, but I'm thinking team owners, athletic trainers, and others could benefit from this also.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing with this, Mike, and if you click on our banner on your site, you'll actually be taken to the one-stop cellular regeneration system, which I just ran through. And after that, you'll see, if you play around on the site, you'll see, references to different partners. I said at the beginning, we're starting with athletes because, clearly they have the need. They also have the resources to invest in these types of technologies. Because what you're talking about for the 5 technology system is a package of about 30,000. And then one of the technologies that I'll talk about that we did, the PEMF, is about 20,000 of that 30,000. But if you start to imagine who can benefit from it, it's anybody who wants to perform at their best, whether that's in sports, a boardroom, at home, or in the community. And, you know, as I said at the outset, our goal is to make reestablish and maintaining a person's best cellular health the focus of every fitness and wellness and health program. Because when you do, I mean, you got your own body on your side, helping to use what it has naturally to help you get better. And you're just really not exacerbating, you're augmenting the ability of your body to do those things. So, you know, again, to go back to, you know, being a bit more direct in the answer, I mean, for an elite athlete, this is going to take your career to a next level. You know, for a team owner or executive coach, et cetera, it's going to take the team to a next level. For any executive who's, you know, equates performance in the boardroom to the success of the company and personal success, I mean, the connection there is self-evident. Any practice is going to use this and take their care model into a whole different area and level and make it a true wellness type of approach. And we're also very interested in working with public, you know, health stakeholders, the people that, you know, manage health systems that take care of people. And we're looking to partner with somebody over in that theater, do a pilot study so that they can get a sense of just how this could be applied on a broader level. So, you know, that's pretty much, I know that just about says everybody, but literally it should say everybody, because everybody has cells. Everybody can benefit from using improved cellular health. And that's where we're trying to get to with this. And, you know, you mentioned God at the beginning. I mean, this is life purpose for me, and I don't want to, you know, make it about me in any way. I mean, I look back over, you know, how I ended up here. You know, Gillian Beret was part of that process, and everything that's happened since has been, you know, law of attraction, and there's no coincidences. And, you know, you and I connecting is also not a coincidence. You know, I've known that as the friendship and the association has continued, and, you know, we're still chatting about how we make this available to people. So, you know, there's reason in everything.
All right, so how do you see these groups partnering with Replenishing Care and Technologies, and what kind of costs are involved?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on the costs a little bit. I mean, the simplest way, or what I would describe as the most effective way for anybody to partner with us, is to get the one-stop cellular regeneration system and use it at, you know, in your home gym to transform it into a major recovery center. Or a team training facility, corporate wellness facility, or practice, any of those types of things. And you're looking at about $30,000 for that, and that's to get the 5 technologies. And each one of those within itself has kind of a premium package of the standalone version of the technology. So there's a lot of value in it. We have integrated protocols. I mean, it's a best practice system. That's my actual background, was a best practice trainer. So we've got very, you know, well scripted, well, you know, described protocols, and we just love to help people learn how to do this properly and you know, hear about their successes. And the other thing is, you know, we've had a number of people start with the PEMF device because of the reasons I said when we spoke about it on a standalone basis. You know, and right now we're working with, you know, I'll just round it off and say we're working with about 10 NHL and NFL players. And, you know, the best part of that is, you know, turning on the sports scores the next day if I'm not able to see the game, and seeing the people who have these and hear that they're, you know, performing really well. But the greatest insight of all is that they take them on road trips. And when you're taking a machine with you, you know, an extra thing on a road trip with you, it's a pretty good indication of its value. So those are the 2 ways. But what I would indicate or encourage people to do is click on your banner. That'll take you to the 5 technology page, if you will. You can read about each one. But if you start to play around on the site, you'll see references to different partners, pages, and different approaches there. But I mean, you know, it ultimately comes down to basically getting the technologies and using them, because no matter whether you're an athlete, an executive, a team owner, or somebody running a practice or trying to help the general population, it's using these technologies. That's the foundation of doing that. So it all pretty much comes back to getting the technologies, learning how to use them, and, using them regularly with the people who rely upon you for care or guidance, or using them with yourself and your family.
Yeah, and like I said, the Vox Life, I've had experience with the inserts for the shoes, and James sent me some a few months ago, and now I walk around. My knees only hurt when I take them off, James. So sometimes I wonder if maybe I should just leave the shoes on all the time, maybe even sleep in them. But even then, the pain without them on is not constant like it used to be, and it dissipates, and it happens less and less every day. And the Vox shoe inserts, I love those things. They do a great job there, and I want to remind everybody to make sure you check out the Replenishing Care and Technologies website. That's www.rcandt.com, or go to grillingtruth.com and click on the banner. James, anything else before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I'll just add to what you said about Vox Life. I mean, I'm 63, and from the time I was about 3, my mother used to laugh that I'd never have socks on. Well, I've changed that at 62 when I came across Vox Life, and I threw away every other pair of socks I had, and I literally have socks on all the time now. But it's always the Vox ones because my legs are stronger with them on. And we actually, if you're on our site or near it, if you're interested in the Vox thing specifically, just go over on the side and click on what we call VoxLifeReplenishingCare.com, because we put together our own website around this. We believe in it so much. And we can probably help the process of your understanding of it if you go over on our site. And you can buy them through there, or just reach out to us, and we'll either get them to you or set you up with them. So I'll add that. But you'll see we have independent or standalone sites on many of the technologies that we work with, simply because we think each one of them is that important. So, it's taken a long time to get here, but we're real happy to be here. And again, it's great to be here with you today, Mike. Thanks again for the opportunity.
All right, guys. Remember, go check out the grillingtruth.com. Click on the Replenishing Care and Banners Care Technologies at the top of the page. Man, that was perfect all day until right at the very end. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead. We are going to wrap it up. Now, are we going to do some more shows over the coming weeks on a few of these products we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I'd like to get back on the regular schedule of them. I had to take a bit of a hiatus and do some things. We just set up our first template replenishing care center, and a lot of time and effort and work went into that, obviously, and there was just not enough time in the days to continue with the shows. But I'd like to see us get back on a regular weekly schedule, especially if there's some interest on the part of people who are hearing it, or if they want to, hear
I'm
something.
interested in just hearing about the scar tissue more, so.
Well, we might just do that, especially when you said you're a big walking bag of it or something.
Yeah, a big walking bag of scar tissue is what my Dr. Groen told me. But
well, I can call work, but not much.
All right, James, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, over 200 outlets. So if you go in to your little search bar in Google and put in The Grilling Truth, you'll find us. So for James Comerford, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grilling Truth, where the legends speak.